Hi and welcome. It's Lucy from Inclusive Change. I'm from inclusivechange.co.uk today, and I am talking all about building the future of work with neurodiversity in mind. This is our mission at Inclusive Change. It encompasses a whole range of different things that can be from any age and around any person. However, today we're going to be talking all about menopause. And I've got a guest with me today, Kirsty Brown from Cat3.com. Have I got that right, Kirsty?
You have. It is KB Fitness for Life. Thank you. That's the Kirsty Brown bit. Yeah.
Lovely. Hi, Kirsty. How are you?
Hi. Yes, not too bad. Thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you for having me here today. It's a great opportunity for us to have a little chat about menopause, but also including some of the things that you cover as well.
Absolutely. And I think we've got a bit of personal stuff to talk about our stories around neurodiversity. What does that mean to us? How we've got those connections, and maybe even how we met, actually. You never know. We can
That might come up. Yeah.
we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the topics, or we'll get into the questions. And I've got a few questions to ask you. They could take us anywhere. So they can take us into a whole range of different places. But let's see where we go with the first one. Tell me a bit about you and your business, Kirsty.
Right. Thanks, Lucy. So I've always been a fitness professional. I've always done sport throughout all my school and college. I've learned what health and fitness and keeping myself fit and active is all about. So that's been a passion for mine since I was, at school and a young girl, badminton, netball, swimming, all sorts of things. But I've also had my injuries. I've also had two children. I've also had a divorce. And eventually moved on to HRT and menopause and things like this. So I just use what I've experienced through my life to help other people, really. So my main aim is health and fitness for women. So healthy lifestyles. So that doesn't just include, sport and fitness and going to the gym, very much into more just daily activity, how they can change their lifestyle, how they can relax, mindfulness, yoga, just taking time out for themselves and thinking about themselves, which is where it sort of also fits even with people with neurodivergent, like my son. So I offer one-to-one sessions, personal training, and really I adapt the personal training really about the person, because it depends. They can come to me saying, I want strength exercises, and that's what I want to do. A lady recently come saying, my auntie who's 74, I don't want to be like her, all frail and sat in the chair and not able to sort of do much. But we eventually found that it was her mobility, and it was the fact that she sat too much at a desk or she sat too much in the car, and we needed to get her much more just mobile. We didn't need to concentrate on strength. We needed to get other things moving first. Moving.
Can
Movement
I
was
take
key.
you back? Can I take you back to a couple of things that you've said? And
Yeah.
one thing I've got to say is that you talked about loving sport at school, badminton, netball. You and I couldn't be more opposite. I
I know.
hated sports at
Yeah.
school.
But this is the biggest thing about what I do, is to try and get people and totally understand that you didn't enjoy it, and I would have been the one at the picking the team, and you might have been the one not being.
Oh, I'd have been one of the last. I'd have been left at the end.
But I've learned over the years, and I've made it my mission, if you like, to understand why people don't like physical activity. And I very, very rarely use the words exercise with people. It's movement, mobility. It's just moving more today than you did yesterday. What can you do? Something each day, walking, gardening. And I really do. And I think working with older people, where we met at the retirement village, working with a lot more older people, I had to move away from that exercise, because they're not gym buddies. They're not lycra people. They don't live like that. And so many don't. But there are a lot of.
To be fair, I'm going to interrupt you. We met at Stoke Gifford Retirement Village, didn't we? So
Yes.
I ran the shop, or owned the shop with my husband, Rich, and you ran the gym and all the fitness classes.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there probably are a couple of them that were gym bunnies and in their life.
Well, there were, but majority. So I very quickly learned that, particularly dealing with older people as well, that talking about going to the gym just put people off. It was not what they wanted. So I had to think of ways to explain it, and it is just keeping people mobile. If you don't use it, you lose it. One of my
Yeah.
mum's favourite sayings. So I've slowly had to adapt and change and understand that actually people's conception of a lifestyle change and being more active thinks, well, going to the gym, and I really need to change that mindset. So I think that's been my mission, is to try and explain to people that it's not big things like that. It's not taking up a sport. It's not going running. All these people who took up
Mm.
couch to 5K during COVID because they were told to go running, and then you get the injuries, and then you have the
Yeah.
problems, and then you can't. So I do try and break it down, and I'll try and pick it apart and find out what the person. It could be sleep, it could be stress,
Mm.
it could be coping with sons and daughters that are having issues, or grandparents, older parents.
Yeah. Being a sandwich carer.
Yeah, and we're talking menopause, but at that age, you've usually got somebody wanting you at one end, children or even grandchildren, and you've got the need for looking
Parent.
after your elderly parents as well. So, and then if you're trying to hold a job down, blah blah blah, it
They
really makes
couldn't
it.
throw much more at us at this age, really, could they?
No, it's very stressful. You've
Any
usually worked your way up in work, like running a
Yeah.
business, and you've worked your way up. You're not usually, generally in a lower paid job. You're in a more
Mm.
higher paid job. And you could be stood there in front of a boardroom of men, shall we say, presenting and not knowing when your period's going to start. Yeah, hot flush.
And the hot
Hot flush.
flush.
Yeah, not slept the night before,
Yeah.
because of your menopause symptoms as much
Yeah.
as anything. And those sort of 10, 15 men sat in front of you haven't got a clue what you're struggling and going through, just holding it together. So yeah, it does make
Yeah.
make a big difference.
Wow.
So so I've
Let's
worked
come
with.
back to some of those things. Let's come back to some of those
Yeah,
things in a minute, if that's okay. Can I
okay.
ask you something else, if that's okay?
Go on then.
It was something else you mentioned. You just mentioned your
Pick it
son.
up.
In that
What's
first
that?
introduction, you mentioned your son. So I know a little bit about this, but what's the connection between your son and neurodiversity?
Okay, so my son is 27
Mhm.
and he has high functioning autism.
Mhm.
So he was actually, I knew that something needed to be investigated from the age of about 3.
Wow.
When he was going to nursery, and he was ripping the socks off, taking the t-shirts off, getting really frustrated because of
The labels.
the labels and the seam across the socks. He would only
Yes.
wear sports
Too bumpy,
socks.
mum. Too
Yeah,
bumpy.
he would get himself. I would leave him at nursery most days in such a state. I thought, how on earth are they going to cope with him? And it
Mm.
upsets you because you're driving away with this 3-year-old, clinging
Yeah.
around your neck, etc., because he's so upset. And that was a repeated daily routine. So I knew there was things wrong there. Then, for example, the next step was a particular situation at junior school. So
Mhm.
he's year 10, and the teacher had been talking to him, a new teacher, not long out of university. And she was talking to the group, or talking to him. And as she walked away, he said, "Don't walk away from me. I'm still talking to you."
Oh my goodness.
And he was probably 10, because as far as he's concerned, he was still talking to her. He
Yep.
hadn't finished what he
Conversation
was
wasn't
saying.
finished.
She walked away. So repeatedly, I got told, when you get brought into school for different
Mhm.
issues about his behaviour, that he thinks he's an adult, and he speaks to the adults, the teachers at the school, as if he's an adult. And part of me thinking, well,
Oh, wow.
is he not right?
Yeah.
So there was many scenarios where he would come home every day and he would tell me about his different scenarios and things that had happened. And I would sit there thinking, well, I don't blame him. Wouldn't
Yeah.
verbalize that
Yeah.
necessarily, but I can see why he was put out by that, and he didn't. Why are we writing a letter to Father Christmas when Father Christmas doesn't exist?
Oh, Kirsty. Oh my God. What have you just said? Yeah, okay. Okay.
But, it was because they wanted him to write a full letter, and he couldn't
Yeah.
see the point.
What's the point
If
in
you
that?
No, because
No.
there was no need. If you wanted him to write a letter, get him to write a letter where he could understand, what
Yeah.
it was about. So then he went on to playing for Swindon Town Football, so secondary school.
Yeah.
And like the way I explained his scenario there was, he was repeatedly standing outside his classroom at school more than he was inside his classroom,
Right.
because his top button wasn't done up. Now
Oh gosh.
he was a big sporty lad with a thick neck.
Yeah,
He
with all
couldn't
the
get his
sensory
top
stuff.
button done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he didn't have his top button up, he was disrespectful, he wasn't behaving, he didn't have his equipment, all these little things. Go to the football, every 6 weeks you had a review with Swindon Town Football.
Mm.
You would think you were sat there listening to the review about another child, because it was, he's fantastic, he's the first one out of the changing room, he
I
comes and
love
asks,
it.
"What do you want us to," he goes and puts the cones out, he collects the cones. Oh, I've
Yeah.
frozen then, didn't I?
Yeah.
He collects the cones, he goes, he rallies out, he tells people to be quiet, he listens, he's the first one to want to demonstrate, and you're thinking, how can this be so different?
2
The
different
complete
children.
opposites.
Yeah.
His way of explaining was, if I want something enough, I can do it.
I recognize that.
That
So yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always thought, yeah, but then is that you just being because there's that,
No.
like, isn't it? No, yeah. So you have to trust that is his thing. And throughout his life, anything he has wanted. So he went on to then play for Southampton at college. So Bath University College. You didn't know these things, did you?
No.
You didn't. So he went to college in Bath, and they had a lot of Bristol Rovers, Bristol City sort of chaps as well. A lot of
Mhm.
banter in the changing room. And when you walk into a changing room and that's your chair and that's your seat you sit at and
Mm.
all your kit was there, and you come back in and it's not there
Ooh.
because somebody's moved it. Yeah, you know what I mean. And but he'd kick off. The amount of times an incident would happen, I'd be contacted because he'd had somebody in a headlock.
We
um,
smile, we laugh, but okay.
okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
because the banter, the people they he didn't understand the banter so much. He couldn't quite understand where it was and that
Yep.
it was fun, because to him it wasn't fun. What was funny about moving his kit, when
Yeah.
that's where he put his kit. That isn't funny. He thought he'd lost it. It was like a, panic
Yep.
mode sort of thing. And then he had an injury and he wasn't with them so much. He was doing rehab. So that distanced him, and again he felt more and more. So it ended up by him not continuing with football, which is such a shame, because professionally on the pitch,
He was
and his
talented.
passion and his heart, yeah, he was there,
Yeah.
but he couldn't deal with the banter.
Yeah.
Even the coaches and the managers and the people around couldn't even sort of help control that situation either, or explain to the lads. So, and although it was funny, because although he couldn't cope with the banter, he's the biggest laugh and he was the biggest comedian throughout his school life. Again, you might probably pick up,
Mm.
because by being funny and making other people laugh, that helped him to feel more accepted.
Yeah.
Um, because he was always the biggest, the strongest. So he started shaving sort of between primary school and secondary school.
Wowzers.
His voice broke when he was at primary school.
Gosh,
So
so he would have
what's
felt so different at school.
so
So
that
different.
deep voice of
Mm.
Connor, talking in a group at school in the classroom, you could hear him. So of course it
Yeah.
was always him that was being, be quiet, sit down, because he was the voice that resonated, with a really quite a deep voice, very monotone, but you could hear it was him. So we've had this little saying that every time anybody, and even now, and he's
Mm.
27, anybody who's got issues, with testosterone as they were growing up, or
Mm.
was going through that growth spurt themselves and wanting to challenge the alpha male, Connor's always
Mhm.
been seen to be the alpha male.
Yeah.
Um,
People go for the biggest, the tallest, yes.
the strongest, the sportiest, whatever you
Yeah.
want to say.
Yeah.
And so we had this, and I said, "Oh, do you think he's just going through this like little testosterone bit?" And then he would justify, these people that were having a pop at him basically, and ticking at him, knocking the chair, knocking.
Yeah.
And this has even gone on to adult jobs he's had. David Lloyd, he's worked at RAF Lynham,
Yeah.
all as PTs. So he's gone down the route of becoming a PT. And whenever he's come up against a other
Another
testosterone alpha male, we've had these issues. I will tell you one little story about the David Lloyd
okay.
again. This links in with work and how people should accept him and things like that. So he's working David Lloyd, and instructions are, you put all the kit away at the end of the evening, at the end of your shift, and lock up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he comes in the next day, and somebody else has locked up and they haven't put the kit away.
Okay.
Okay, so you're told I have to put it away. So why didn't they put it away?
Mm.
So I'm saying, well, did you go and speak to them and just say, was there any reason why you didn't put it away? Or yeah, I
Mm.
noticed you forgot last night. That's softer. No, why should I do that? Goes to the manager because we're all told to do it. We're all told to put it
Why
away.
haven't you done it?
So that, of course, starts to alienate other staff.
Right.
And I think where I'm leading to with this, I've always, after that sort of scenario, said to him, why don't you tell people about your high functioning autism, your black and
Yeah.
white, and just give them the heads up that you can be a little bit like that, but you're not meaning
Straightforward.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And not apologize for yourself before it happens, but look, well,
Yeah.
just say that's what I can be like. And I don't mean to be, his answer to me, and this might be one for you to think or to talk about, Lucy, but his thing for me is, I don't want to tell them because I don't want to be treated differently.
Yeah. Disclosure is a really tricky
Mm,
topic, actually, and it's one that we could probably do a whole other show
yeah,
about.
yeah, I
Um,
know.
disclosure is it's very personal,
Mm,
and still now, even now, actually, I mean, not even still now, it's just people will bring in their bias, and it's not even unconscious bias, just
no,
bias and stereotypes and attitude. And the minute you tell somebody that you're autistic in the workplace, things will change.
yeah,
I'm not going to deny that. It will, it happens. And many autistic adults that I work with through coaching, through courses, through the training, uh, lots of them say, I haven't disclosed yet, and those that have disclosed have
yeah,
regretted it. Now, I cannot be more positive about that, apart from saying that when you're in an environment and an organization that values different brains and values diversity
mm,
of thought, actually it's much safer and it's okay to disclose, but we don't want to tell everyone.
no, no. And he says, I would rather when I need to. And of course, my
Yeah,
answer is, well, is it not too late? So the scenario of
yeah.
trying to talk to people after he'd gone to and then the manager had told the other person off, and then everybody, was that
Wow.
not too late?
So neurodiversity means that we're all neurodiverse, right? So that's everybody. Some of us are neurodivergent, so we will see people with conditions such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's, dyscalculia, dyspraxia. And I think when somebody says, "Well, I'm neurodivergent too," yeah,
Mm,
but they may not be talking in the same ways.
yeah,
And even being autistic, two people who are autistic are still two different people.
yeah,
They've
yeah,
still got two different personalities.
yeah,
My own children, so my children are both autistic, so 16 and nearly 18. They couldn't be more different. They
yeah,
they are they are opposites in many different ways. Similar in others because we're related. But just because somebody says, "I know what I am autistic,"
yeah,
or "I'm neurodivergent too," it
yeah.
doesn't mean that it's gonna be right for somebody in the workplace.
Absolutely. And this is, I think, why it is so hard for people to understand.
Mm.
And if I can link that to the menopause, yeah, so direct
Yes,
link there,
please.
it's just come to mind that, as you say, each person's experience of being autistic or ADHD or whatever it might be is very, very different. Male, female, age, experiences, way they handle it, tools,
Yeah.
the tools I've given my son over the years, the tools you're giving in your children to be able to cope with these different situations, the things they learn, etc., are all so different.
Yes.
And you throw women into the pot, what age, what their experience, what's their stresses, what's their background, all sorts of things, isn't it? What do they eat? How do they sleep? What's their stresses? Absolutely. So every single menopause, experience is different. Yours is going to
Mm.
be very different to mine.
Yeah.
Yes, we can all say, and historically it's always been, oh, mood swings and hot flushes. Oh, yeah, and not sleeping very well. And those common three, when I do I do a workshop and I might have 20, 25 ladies in front of me. Yeah, we write down the common ones, but I love it when somebody says itchy scalp, dry mouth, um,
Ooh,
yeah, itchy skin, and I get all these other, dry eyes where the eyes get really dry, and I
yeah,
get all these others, and it gives us an opportunity to say, yes, we are in the same room. We are literally in the same room, in the same boat.
yeah.
But look how different all our experiences are. where some are having periods, some haven't, stopped their periods,
Mhm.
some have long periods, some have messy periods, sometimes it's short and, it just fades out very easily. Sometimes it's, it's flooding and you don't know when it's going to come. Like I say, stood in front of a boardroom doing a presentation and you could just suddenly have this massive period. So I think it is very difficult for other people to understand fully, clearly,
Mm.
but we just need to keep drumming the beat, don't we? And the fact that I think, with my son, that taboo subject, not wanting the stigma, etc. But
Yep.
that's the same with menopause. People don't want to go into work and start talking about their symptoms and what's going wrong with their life, because you're supposed to hold it all together. And British,
Yeah, don't bring your whole self. Bring your whole self to work, but don't bring that whole self to
yeah,
work,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, well, I listened to a podcast the other day, and the doctor said WW, when she was doing her training, they were classed as WW. Oh, you got a WW. She was American. You got a WW coming in, and it whinging woman was in on their notes. They put WW, whinging woman, and she grew up with that, and now she's early 50s herself, is trying to completely, obviously learn and spread the message about it and change. But how dramatic is that, to be classed? That's what they were classing people a few years back, 12 years ago. So it is a stigma, isn't it? If I can jump back to the Stoke Gifford Retirement Village and
Yeah,
just
go
give you
for
an
it.
example.
Yeah,
So I was talking to one of the residents, you know her well, Barbara,
yeah.
and so her husband was on the cycle, on the pedal cycle. Yeah. So she was chatting to me and she said, I've frozen again, haven't I?
You have.
Oh,
Let's
I'm back.
pause.
So I spoke to one of the residents at the Stoke Gifford Retirement Village. You know her very well, Barbara, and her husband was on the pedal cycle in front of us, not really listening. And she said, so I started to, during COVID, I took the time out that we'd
Yes.
naturally been given, not meeting up with people, not going out and this sort of thing. Was still going to work as you were. But I took that as my time to re-educate myself about menopause. I'd been on HRT for about 8 years then. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know why. And I was also looking at friends and people around me and clients that I'd been working with, wondering why a lot of them were starting the symptoms that I was looking at the 70 and 80-year-olds at the village who had
Wow.
got those issues, but had those issues and were living with them, down the line,
Yeah.
multiple health conditions, high blood pressures, knee joint pains, this sort of thing, and the weight around the middle and that. And they were all coming to me in their 70s and 80s wanting me to try and help them. And I'm thinking, whoa, we need to get to the people in their 40s and their 50s to try and work out what this is, how we can help ourselves before we get to the 70 and 80-year-old. Because you're just as long post-menopause as you are pre-menopause. If you've
Oh
got
my
40,
goodness.
if you're sort of
Yeah.
up to 40 and then you're going to be 80, you're sort of, so that was why I started. So I was talking to Barbara. She says, oh, why does everybody now on telly and things? You had Davina doing programs and all sorts, and Louise Mincham and things like that had started. And it was, why is everybody talking about menopause these days? We just put up, we got on with it. I can't really remember,
Up and shut up.
British, So I said, okay. I said, were you working when you were bringing up your 3 children? Oh, no. Okay. I said, so her husband was going to work. And I said, okay, did you go out for meals regularly? Did you have takeaways or go out for a meal at least once a week? Oh,
No,
no, only
no.
birthdays. Oh, no, only birthdays, high days and holidays. And we had an allotment. And I said, oh, right. So your exercise was the allotment and you cooked your own food? Yes, yeah. Yeah, I cook my own food, usually from scratch, as we did in those days, And I said, oh, so you had exercise as well doing the allotment? And she said, yeah, I didn't have a car. So when my
So
husband
she
was
walked
there, I
everywhere or caught the
worked.
bus.
I go, okay. So you didn't work. Okay. So did you have a mobile phone that people could contact you on 24/7? Oh, no. Did you have emails coming through, ping, 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 and Facebook, ping, ping, ping? No. So no really external sort of pressures particularly. I mean, you're not saying bringing up 3 children isn't stressful, but,
Yeah.
no, not really. No. Did you drink alcohol most evening? Because it was during COVID, it was everybody was saying about, oh, I'll have a gin,
Yes.
and we get through COVID with a gin. And it's a shame it didn't clear COVID, wasn't it, the gin? And she goes, oh gosh, no, only holidays and, you know, birthdays and Christmases and things like that. I said, so can I just step back and just say, if you've just listened to what I've said, that it's the 21st century pressures, the additional pressures on a time when your body needs to not be having lots of sugar, not to be having alcohol, not to have caffeine, not to have stress, you know, not to have time, to be able to have time out and exercise, but you've got to have time to fit the exercise in, or walk or do. And I went through, I said, I think it's all these, menopause isn't any different. It's different, as we've said, for every single person, but it isn't any different. It's just, yes, we've finally broken the taboo and actually starting to talk about it. So that's why there's so many people talking about it, which is fab. She didn't talk to her mum about it. She never talked to anybody about it, you know, during her time. But also it's all those 21st century pressures that I've just said about. And she just went, okay, yeah, fair enough. Oh dear, it was so funny. That was an 83-year-old, but she totally got it when I sort of explained it. And I usually say that as like an intro to people that, you know, that's why I look at the lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Yes, HRT is part of it, but if you can de-stress, where it's all possible, take time out for yourself. If you can do a little bit more movement every day, just like she was doing, just generally, if you can start to cook more real things than tinned and preserved things, cut back on your sugars, you know, sugar insulin resistance is really bad in menopause. All of these things, drink more water, all of these things that were being done more naturally years ago, but we just, you know, again, our lifestyle. I mean, you can stand in any queue waiting for petrol, at B&Q, wherever, and there'll be chocolate in front of you. I mean, how bad is that? Wherever you go, we've got food everywhere, haven't we? We're never without, you know, which is why people are starting to talk about sort of fasting and giving yourself body time to break from eating all the time and things like that. So yeah, so sorry, I linked back that somehow, but yeah.
No,
So I
that was
that
fascinating.
conversation with Barbara, it was an eye-opener for me because I had to explain it. And I thought, oh, you know, and that's one thing I don't know about you, Lucy, but I think when you have children that you need to explain things, and maybe 2 or 3 times in different ways because they didn't get it the first time, you become quite good at analogies and explaining. And yeah, that, I think that's the teacher in me, because I've had to teach Connor and try and cope with his ways. I think that's where I can sort of realize the best way to try and explain something to somebody. And I just said that really badly, but
No, you haven't at all. What age then do we need to start talking about menopause?
Definitely mid-30s, I would definitely say, because it really does start from mid-30s. Yes, you talk to anybody who's mid-30s these days, they've probably only got a little child because they seem to be waiting to start families. I know with my eldest boy, a lot of he's coming up to 30, and a lot of his friends aren't even starting families yet. So
I
they
was in
ought
my mid-30s.
they ought to make a start, because so when you're born, you have a million eggs, as obviously, you have a million eggs. By the time you get to 30, you have only got 10% of your eggs left. And by the time you get to 40, you've got 3% of your eggs left, and they go down in quality and quantity as well. So people who leave children till later on in life are lucky. Yeah. So I really do think, again, there was me talking to people in my friends sort of approaching 50. Average age in the UK is 51, they say, for menopause.
Right, okay.
That's the research at the moment, but they are talking to people who are in their 50s and 60s when they do the research. Okay. I think in a few years' time, when they start
talking in
talking
their
to people
40s.
younger and people realize that perimenopause, you know, the lead up, then they will realize that it starts a lot younger, like myself, 41 sort of thing. So, but your journey can start with just whether it's the messy periods, not sleeping so well, not coping with stress, maybe anxiety, whatever you're sort of maybe starting with, palpitations, hot flushes, whatever it might be, can start in that mid-30s. But when you go to a GP because you've got messy periods, they treat you for messy periods.
Right,
When
okay.
you go to a GP because your right knee hurts, they start thinking, oh, it's your right knee, you know, do you see what I mean? So they only treat you for the thing that you've gone there with,
It's
clearly.
not holistically. They're
No,
not looking for they're
no.
not looking at the whole thing.
And when you're too young, they're not going to look at it. If you were
No.
50 or 45 to 48 or something like that and went in with it, then they might sort of say, oh, you might be menopause these days.
Yeah.
So, but if you collect a few of your symptoms you have together and start realizing, then the sooner you can get onto, if it, again, it's not for everybody, but, and I'm not pushing HRT in that sense, but the
Yeah.
sooner you can get onto being treated and maybe either changing your lifestyle or going on to HRT, the better longevity, long term that is for you than leaving it.
Mhm.
This like, no, I'm going to fight through these, night sweats and I'm going to, oh, it's all right, I'll be okay. But your bone health, we were talking the other day, weren't we? Your bone,
Yeah.
cardiovascular, your joints, your brain, the brain fog and your messages. It
Hang
helps
on,
with
let
you.
me ask you, because you explained to me previously about the brain fog. Why
Yes.
does brain fog happen? So if we're neurodivergent, our brains are busy anyway, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and many women who are late diagnosed and don't realize that they have ADHD, the menopause in particular can just throw it out there, baby, and our
Yes.
brains become either even more active. My brain is more active than I have ever imagined in my life. I feel like I'm on fire in my brain sometimes.
Yeah.
But also the brain fog happens, and
Yeah.
we think that I get names mixed up. I call my husband my son's name, or I call somebody Sarah instead of Stam, and I know the names in front of me, but I just can't get it out, and that's not how I used to be. That's not
No,
me.
no, so it's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That,
So
yeah.
what is it that's causing that?
So a few things really. One of the main things is that people won't realize that estrogen actually helps with the neurons firing, which is what we were saying the other day. The
Yeah.
neurons firing the messages across your brain. Estrogen is involved. And you
Right.
think,
Okay.
hang on a minute, it's a sex hormone,
Didn't
isn't
think
it?
that.
Doesn't it just produce my eggs every month and that's it?
I didn't even
No.
know it was a sex hormone. So there we go.
Oh, come on.
Maybe that
So,
explains a lot.
so estrogen is used in so many places. It helps your collagen in your skin.
Yeah.
It helps with your cardiovascular, so your vessels inside your body. Obviously, when we get a dry vagina and with sex and painful sex, etc.,
Yeah.
it's there as well. But it even sends messages across the brain. It helps with those neural pathways.
Yeah.
So as the estrogen starts to deplete and isn't needed because of not needing to produce those eggs, because there's less and less eggs,
Yeah.
then the whole body starts to lose this hormone that it's had all its
That's
life.
been really
That's
helpful.
been really helpful. The other element is if you start to then get stressed again because of other symptoms, and anxiety and stress and depression can be another symptom of menopause. It can be people who were anxious before become really more anxious, or it can be somebody who was not anxious at all can suddenly become
Yeah.
anxious. When you use parts of your brain, so if you're very overactive in your sort of emotional part of your brain at the front, it can't multitask, so it switches off the memory part of your brain because
Right.
it has to deal with this part. So of course the names, forgetting a name, forgetting a
They're in
date
the
and
back.
starting to forget something, the memory part is at the back of your head and it
Yeah.
can't deal with both because you're just overwhelmed. And as you say, it's the firing isn't working properly. So there's sort of two elements. There's one that estrogen isn't helping the firing going around. And if you're more heightened and more stressed and more anxious, then the memory part seems to switch off because it's not needed a lot of the time to
Yeah.
function. We don't need to always remember things. In this 21st century, we do. But, the cavemen didn't need to remember dates and times and diaries and
No.
team
People
meetings.
think well, I have a thing where I can remember numbers, and people
Yeah.
think they're like, "How can you remember that code or that number?" And it's just numbers. That's still one thing I can still do, even through the menopause.
That's good. Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, but then people they'll lose their confidence because of the memory. I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that was one of the first things that I started to think about when I was around 40, 41, when somebody said, "Oh, go and have a blood test. I think it could be menopause." And she was training to be a midwife. And my mum had had an early menopause, and my sister
Right.
did as well. So it can be, again, if you talk to people in the family, you can find out. And also, if you start your periods early, then
Right.
obviously
You're
those
likely to
those million
potentially.
eggs are likely to, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's a
Yeah.
couple of little things, and I was only 10, 11 when I started my period, same as my sister, you know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it sort of it all linked together. But I was working as an events coordinator at a college and just trying to remember who had to be where and what time and what needed and the kit and the dates throughout the whole year's schedule of events, you know, open days and all sorts of things. I just started to make mistakes, and I
And that
just
can have a real impact on
yeah,
performance, where employers start going,
yeah,
"Actually, you're not performing. I need to pull you up
yeah,
on this. I need to talk to you about this." And it can feel that everything's falling apart at this part
yeah,
in this time in our
absolutely.
life.
Yeah, people think they've got dementia coming, you
Yeah.
know, and get really worried about that, which it isn't. It normally after menopause, but into postmenopause will come back and be absolutely fine.
Right,
Again,
okay.
you know, people, you know, if they can take HRT, I know the HRT I started, my sleepless nights went within about 2 weeks. I was back to sleeping, and I've slept well since. I used to be awake from about 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That was my sort
Okay.
of window of just awake. And I know other people that has
Yeah.
helped them. So if that's an issue, also the dates and the memory and things again, that has calmed down for myself as well. Yeah, it's a worrying time because you do start people start a sentence and then can't find the words, and yet they used to be able to find them. Can't think there's
Yes,
an actual
and laugh, but
technology.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but confidence. I mean, one of the sort of facts I was going to say today was 25% of women that are suffering with perimenopause symptoms leave work or leave the job they're in because
Mm,
of their symptoms. So when we were saying about the square peg in the round hole and trying to fit with my son and, you know, and the autistic side of things, then why are the women struggling? So
yeah.
I always put it one of my little analogies. If you had a pregnant lady, so one of your colleagues became pregnant, the line manager would have a policy and a procedure to look
Yeah.
at and know
Yeah.
what to do. If they didn't know anyway, they would give special dispensation. So you would think anybody at work would generally look and think, oh, she'll need to sit down. If she's got a standing job, I'll get her a chair. Oh, she might get hot, so she might need a fan. Oh, well, she might need to wear looser clothes or different clothes,
Mm.
you know, this sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised if she phones in tomorrow and she's sick because, you know, this
Yep,
general
I remember
understanding
that. Yeah,
and
I remember
allowance
all
thing.
those things.
So why have you not got this 52-year-old that is literally struggling, probably more than the pregnant lady
Yeah.
who you know, with all sorts of things that are going on in her body, like we've mentioned, you know, but we make no allowances at all because, again, they're not shouting about it. They are not that the pregnant lady's shouting
Yeah.
about it. No, there's not anything visual that you can see, and they're struggling on. And I think, you know, we need a society and we need definitely in work environments that, you know, my son can go and talk to people and not be judged differently. The pregnant lady, yes, gets the allowances she might need. My son gets the allowances when he needs them. And then, you know, as somebody with menopause needs to go into a workplace and say, look, I'm really struggling, just need support. You know, I need time out every now and again, or I need the fan or the window open.
Yeah.
Or could you work from home so that you can lounge around in your comfy kit? You're near the toilet if you know if your
If
period's
it
going to
needs
come
to
on. You've
come
got
on.
everything you
Yeah.
need. You're not going to annoy your colleagues by. I worked at South Gloss Council, and lots of people were opening windows, and even myself, I was sat there thinking, it's a bit chilly in here because you know, wasn't a problem at the time for me, but I can understand, you know, that why the ladies were needing to be. You could see the ripple around the room of like, why she got a window open? It's cold in here already.
Yeah.
You can see the woman was struggling. So there's so many environments. When I did some work with active lifestyle centres,
Yeah.
so we were talking about swimming teachers. So you're a swimming teacher, you've got 12 children in front of you. Not only
Oh
you're
my
on a
gosh.
poolside that's like mega hot, you're in shorts, you know, and you could suddenly start your period. You know, it's
In the
really
pool.
off-putting not knowing when it would happen
Yeah.
or how you're gonna feel. Yeah, or in the pool or both, whatever. We were also talking about the clothes. We were also saying could they look to provide different uniform that could be cooler?
Mhm.
Could they wear vesty tops instead of, you know, the normal sleeve tops?
Mm.
And it was really good because I did it with the managers. So the actual chief exec of Circadian Trust and a lot of the managers. And then the fitness manager said to me, could you come and do a session with the fitness staff?
Yeah.
Because they are getting 20-year-olds walk in or 25-year-olds walk in and want an induction and a program. and then they're having a 52-year-old or a 45-year-old
Yeah.
walk in, and they're giving them the same program
Yeah,
because
and
they,
it's not.
again, when you do your training as a personal trainer and things, menopause isn't mentioned. And some of their faces that, they, when they'd done the training, they were so much more aware. And I said, how are you going to deal with that? Do you bring it up? Do you wait for them to bring it up? Or you just in your own mind change your program? You're not
Yeah.
going to go hell for leather for a 45-year-old like you might go,
Mm.
sort of a little bit harder for,
I
because
think
the injuries.
you gave me some advice around that, around changing and thinking about exercising and actually going for strength rather than going for weight loss, but to strengthen my bones and to strengthen the bits of my body that I probably haven't exercised. And I will say I probably haven't followed
Still,
that through, and I
still not.
probably need to after this call. We're going to wrap it up shortly,
Yeah,
okay?
cool.
All the questions that I had, I haven't needed to ask. You've literally just, I mean, you have so much knowledge there, Kirsty, and I know how much you want to share it with people.
Yeah.
I know how much there is in you that
Mm,
is like, you look at it in a different way. And I think one of your USPs, let's say your unique selling point, is that you have seen this from the retirement village aspect of things. So you've seen this
yeah,
and seen the 80-year-olds, and you've said, actually, if we don't do something, this is going to get worse,
yeah,
because those 80-year-olds didn't have the experiences that we've had. They
yeah,
haven't, exactly as Barbara's story, the Barbara
yeah.
conversation has shown us. So how can people get in touch with you? How can people find out more and work with you,
Oh,
or
yeah.
what can they do?
Yes, I'm sort of burst into work with people really. So they can contact me obviously on my website, KB
Brilliant.
Fitness for Life. My email is just info at
Yes.
KB Fitness for Life. All the details are obviously on my website. There are some modules. So I've written 6 healthy lifestyle modules, and
Yeah.
they go through sort of drinking water, eating healthily, sleep, exercise, etc., but explaining them in obviously more than what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
And obviously I do one-to-one sessions. If somebody just had a consultation with me and we worked out and that's enough, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If it's 2 more sessions and the person's on the right path, going to see the GP and
And
knows what
I,
they're doing, that's absolutely fine. I will tailor it to you. If it's not even around exercise, you just need somebody to talk a few things over and get some confidence to
yeah.
go to your GP or whatever, then I'm here. So yeah, drop me a line.
I'm also really looking forward to doing some stuff with you at Inclusive Change. So welcome to our world, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do some brilliant stuff and connect that neurodiversity and menopause piece. I want to ask you one thing before we finish. All right,
Right.
I want to
Yeah.
round off the story around your son, and I
Mm.
really would love to know where he is now and how he's doing,
Okay.
because I would love younger people who are autistic and think, I'm not going to achieve much, and everybody's told me I can't do something. I would love to hear where he is now and what he's doing, because I want to feel
Yeah.
that ambition and inspiration.
Yeah, so after that last bounce back that we mentioned earlier at the MOD situation, we felt we had a chat and we decided that really running his own business was the best way to go.
Wow.
So he runs his own personal training business, does quite a lot online, but also
Yep.
meeting obviously with clients one to one. So he sets program. He's so detailed. He really sort of sees what the people need, and so he runs CrossFit sessions. He lives in Yeovil. So he's just trained as a CrossFit trainer now as well as a PT. So he runs a variety of classes. And he picks up individual clients, but
Yep.
you will get no more sort of ultimate commitment. And on the personal side, he got engaged not this last Christmas, but the Christmas before.
Yep.
And I think it was last weekend they just set their date for their wedding.
Oh, that's
So
magic, isn't it?
he met
Magic.
his match in an arm. She does army weightlifting and things. So
Oh my goodness.
match, and he's got 2 little dash hounds and army accommodation. And yeah, he's really done well.
What more
He's
can we ask
Yeah.
for?
So you
What?
can get there, and he's
Yeah.
learned so much, so many
Yeah.
tools. But as he said, remember, if I really want something, then I will get it, and I think he's got it.
I think that's an inspiration. That's parents out there who are parents of young people who are autistic and going through school and having a really hard time. And I've been there. Um, there is hope. and
Yeah.
there is future. And if you believe, and if you have a young person who has a motivation in something and they want to do it, they will succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
just got to support them and be there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be the listening ear. But yeah, they
Yeah.
can do it. Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Thank
Just before we
you.
finish, one last time, tell me your website and tell me how people can get in
So
touch with you.
it's kb-fitnessforlife.com, and you can get in touch, just add in info at kb-fitnessforlife.com. But be in touch.
Absolutely
Thank you,
fantastic,
Lucy.
Kirsty.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for talking to me. I'm Lucy Smith from inclusivechange.co.uk. We are talking about building the future of work with neurodiversity in mind, and I'll speak to you all again. Thank you.
Thank you.